this plenary. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Mariana Kotseva, Director General of Eurostat, the Statistical Office of the European Union. Mariana Kotseva was appointed the DG of Eurostat by the European Commission in March 2018. She's the first woman at the helm of Eurostat. She joined Eurostat as advisor, was class to the Director General in 2012, and 2 years later, in 2014, she was appointed Deputy Director General. Prior to joining the European Commission, Dr. Kotseva was head of Bulgaria's National Statistical Institute. She's also held a number of high-profile consulting posts in the Bulgarian and foreign administrations and led international projects for the UN and the World Bank, among others. She has a master's degree in economics, a PhD in statistics and econometrics, and she's also pursued executive education at Harvard's Kennedy School. Dr. Kotseva is an associate professor of statistics at the University of National and World Economy in Sofia, Bulgaria. And I invite her to the podium to speak to us about the EU experience in monitoring the SDGs. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We need a bit of technological change. Thank you very much. So let me try. Yes, it works. So once again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Director General of Eurostat, I'm very honored and pleased to share with you experience with measuring and monitoring SDGs, especially after excellent presentation of Pietro Gennari. All the time while he was presenting, I was thinking how I could answer in European Union case to your provocative questions. So as a real statistician by education and by profession, I will present facts, what has happened in the European Union, and I will lead the audience to make conclusions to evidence policy-based making. So let me first say that once again to say at the beginning that I'm representing Eurostat, the Statistical Office of the European Union, but it's also very important to underline that everything what has been done is done in close cooperation with the statistical authorities in the European Union member states. And this is something very important related to your presentation, Pietro, because maybe some of you already ask yourselves how what I'm presenting here relates to national monitoring and how what I'm presenting here relates to global monitoring. So maybe this is will be a nice continuation of your presentation when you see the concrete outcomes. Let me first say, maybe to join Nick when you concluded that it's not only a question of statistical capacity when we are talking about measuring SDGs, because at the end, the implementation of SDGs agenda starts with political commitment. And this is the starting point. So in our European Union context, there is a very high political commitment by the member states that sustainable development goals will be the leading ones in implementing different set of internal and external European Union policies. Something more, in 2019, there was a reflection paper which was published, which tries to consider in the future how European Union would like to develop in order to achieve 2030 agenda in the next 10 years. And quite concretely, you know that currently the Union changes its leadership. The new President-elect, Madame von der Leyen, put very clearly on her agenda that in any area, sustainable development goals should be the leading goals for EU policies. And also undertook very concrete commitments, just to mention three. The EU ambassador this morning gave you an example of one, that there is an ambition that by 2050, European Union will be climate neutral part of the world, which is quite ambitious. I will give you examples of other two initiatives to develop a new biodiversity strategy. And the third one, example, which is completely relevant to this conference, is the commitment to develop a strategy for sustainable agriculture, which is nicely called From Farm to Fork. And in this political context, especially for agriculture, of course, in the European Union, as I said, the global goals, or the goals agreed at the global level, are the leading ones. And very often people associate agriculture with the second goal of zero hunger. In European Union, more precisely, the political goals were summarized in three main ones concerning agriculture. First, to promote sustainable agricultural production and biodiversity. Second, to reduce malnutrition and obesity. And third, to reduce environmental impacts of agricultural production, which is directly related to the issues of climate change, which have been very extensively mentioned which were mentioned in the first session. Again, as many of you mentioned, also agriculture is not related to only the second goal. It has an impact, and it's also impacted by several other sustainable development goals. So this is the first part and the first message of the set of the slides, that always the statistical measuring and monitoring starts with political commitment, starts with defining the priorities and policies. So then the second part of my presentation summarizes, maybe this is the most relevant one to what Pietro said. The second part summarizes our experience with really implementing monitoring of SDGs at European level. So what is very important, again, it's not a question of statistical capacity only. It's very important that there is a political commitment for monitoring of the progress towards achieving SDGs. And we are very happy that as statisticians working in European Union, that there is political commitment of European Union to monitor closely the progress towards the SDGs. This commitment was made in a public document in 2016. It is also important that this measurement is based on indicator set, on indicators framework. So, of course, we have at global level the globally agreed indicator set. Pietro was talking about this. But then the question is, at EU level, the question was to develop a particular EU set of indicators which measure the progress of the Union as a whole towards SDGs. And of course, the same task is about developing national monitoring data sets where the countries measure the progress of the country towards achieving the SDGs. What is very important as well, that when this political commitment of measurement is done, that there is a key organization which is responsible for coordinating that process. And we are very happy when this responsibility is given to statistical authorities. So in our case, it was clearly written that the progress at EU level as a whole should be coordinated by Eurostat, and Eurostat should be in the driving seat for developing the set of indicators. And of course, this case resembles the many situations in the countries where it's extremely important that the national statistical authorities are put at the front of the process of developing and coordination of the data collection and measuring the sustainable development goals at the end. So maybe this is the next slide, is the one which we have to keep when we are answering to provocative questions, where you see how many different levels of reporting SDGs we have, how many actors we have, and then at the end what maybe we are missing is the users who don't know where to look, on what to look, and what to interpret, and who actually provides the best picture of the progress of SDGs. So here comes the message for coordination of reporting efforts, especially in communicating to the outside world. Now the next slide. Of course, the presentation is available, so you could consult it afterwards. I'll try just to summarize the key messages, which we call on this slide the key messages, challenges for developing an indicator set. What is important, what was difficult for us, what we have learned, and we are happy to share this experience with you as an input to the conference in the next days. First question is, we look at existing data. It's a normal reaction. And then we have to, I could just repeat what Pietro said, that even in national statistical systems which are considered to be quite developed in the sense that they provide wide range of official statistics, we were surprised to find that they are still missing data. And the data are mainly missing in terms of composition of certain indicators, by gender, by education, by regions, which is extremely important, because let's us remind that the main motto main slogan of Agenda 2030 was leaving no one behind. So we cannot implement this overall goal, if we don't provide detailed statistics. So this is still a big challenge for official statistics. Then the next point, I have to admit that in the European Union case, in order to avoid additional burden, reporting burden on the countries, our starting point when we selected indicators was to include existing indicators. And this, by definition, reduces our ambition. We said, okay, we will start with that, and then we will expand the data set with the time. Another very big challenge, when you have to construct a set of indicators, which is supposed to measure the progress as a whole, your big challenge is the challenge to select what should be in the data set. Because there are so many different aspects, so many policies, and everybody wants to join the train to show how his or her policy has contributed to the achievement of SDG goals. And this was the biggest fight of Eurostat. We had many, many discussions with policy departments to try to restrict these ambitions so that we get at the end a set which is balanced, which covers all goals in a proportionate way. And then another challenge which we face is the challenge of communication, because there are different ways to measure the things, but what we have to choose at the end as an indicator should communicate very clearly what is the progress achieved by different goals. And sometimes some indicators, of course, they are multi-purpose, so sometimes it's a good news, sometimes it's a bad news, because with one indicator we could measure different things, but on the other side you also have to have indicators which are clearly related to a particular approach. So what has helped in our situation? We applied statistical wisdom, which was difficult to get through, but everybody agreed on number of selection criteria like statistical quality, data availability, and policy relevance. And statistical quality was transferred in concrete measures, like for how long the data were available, was the time series enough, what was the quality of data, were they representative, what is the source of the data, etc. So at the end, we have the result. We have some statistics here with in red, which are statistics of the statistical data set. European Union data set at the moment is 99 different indicators, and 87 of them are updated annually. This is very important. I just wanted to highlight the last two bullet points. My favorite bullet point is not the last, the one before, that 34 which means 1/3 of the indicators in the data set, they are coming from non-official sources, which means that they are produced. Somebody from statistical office switch off the line. Because I'm going to advocate that 1/3 of indicators are coming from not from statistical offices directly, but from other sources like big data. You cannot hear me.